Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being back here today. Today, we're going to be talking about the abdication of the parent. We think we are giving them a tool. That's a lie that we tell ourselves to sleep at night. We say it's just a tablet, it's just educational, it's just for the future, but it's not a tool. It's a portal to absolute, unmediated chaos. When you hand a child a device that knows everything, you're effectively telling them that you know nothing. You are abdicating your role as a mediator of reality. You are stepping aside and letting a silicon god raise your offspring. And the question is not just, is this bad for their eyes? The question is fundamental. If the magic and the machine provides the answer, the comfort and the dopamine, why would the child ever respect the parent? Why would they ever learn to contend with the suffering of the world? We are raising a generation of kings and queens who have never conquered a single inch of territory. My guest today here is to sound the alarm on the collapse of the human competence. The question, are we sacrificing the potential of our children on the altar of digital convenience?
Sure.
My friend, there is a dichotomy that blows my mind. On one hand, you have this AI chat GPT that is the ultimate tutor. It's got infinite patience and knows every fact in human history. It teaches calculus to a 5-year-old and it sounds like a utopia. But then you look at the reality and the parent comes home and the kid asks for help for homework, but the parent doesn't have the answer. The AI does. Instantly, the competence hierarchy is shattered. The father is no longer the figure of wisdom and the machine is. The mother isn't the guide, the algorithm is. We talk about removing the struggle from learning. You don't get education, you get data processing. You get a kid who can recite the answer but has never wrestled with the problem. We are outsourcing the development of the brain itself. It's like buying a black belt online. You have the belt, but you can't fight. The world is going to punch you right in the face. Welcome, everyone, to episode 10 of Hey Huzi. We made it. We're here. Today is going to be a groundbreaking conversation, and there's a silence happening. I talk to parents who are terrified, ones that are excited, the ones that take the phones away, and the ones that want to ban iPads in school. But they can't, because if you are one of those parents who says no, your kid is the outcast. You are the weirdo. We have to speak about this specific archetype, Eric. How can we start to protect our kids in this tumultuous time where the child consumes so much on these little devices, and now with the prevalence of AI, they're essentially growing up with a form of technology that we have never been exposed to at that age, during an age where their mind is malleable and can essentially direct their trajectory in life. They could either use it to enhance their processes or to completely, essentially, remove thinking altogether. And I think that's where that dichotomy tends to stand. So welcome again, Eric. Thank you for showing up today. This is going to be fun.
Your intro was fire, man. It's like there's a bunch of little one-liners in there, like the buying a black belt online and all. I loved it. I was starting to get a little down during it just a little bit though, and I don't want to do that. I want to shine some sort of light at the end of the tunnel. Not that it was your fault, but it's just such a big topic and an important topic. And what's funny, so I'm actually at a ski lodge right now, and on the way walking up to this little stairs, I carved out my little corner here. I had a little pit in my stomach. I don't know exactly what we're going to talk about in the questions you're going to ask at these things, which makes it so much fun. But I walked by a family of 3, a mom and dad, what seemed to be a mom and a dad and a little child. The dad was on Instagram, mom was on Facebook, and the kid was on YouTube with headphones on the iPad. And I just like had this little pit in my stomach. I'm like, oh my God, it is a beautiful bluebird day up here. The snow, the mountain, you can see 180-degree views in every direction up here. It's stunning. And I feel judgmental when I say this, but then the family's tucked them in the corner with the headphones on, the iPhone, the 2D screen in their face, and it's just mind-blowing, buddy. So anyways, let's see it after. Let's talk about this today.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So let's kind of just jump into what I think is on everybody's minds in terms of technology, I think, as this unit as a whole. I remember when phones came out. I remember when I became a parent and I started seeing other parents giving their kids cell phones, mobile phones, smartphones at a very young age. I'm like, that's never going to be me. That's just too young. Like, my kids are going to have a phone until they're in high school or out of high school or whatever. Here they are, 10 years old with a phone that I could only dream of at 18, 19 years old. And we try to make sense of it all. They have these things that's going on. We need to be able to reach them. The world isn't what it used to be as it was when we were kids, and we could just go out until the sun set, and then we run back home and drinking water out of a hose and all the things that you hear about in the 80s and the 90s that kids today are like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Do you think the world is different, first and foremost, than it was 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago?
So just a week ago, funny how these things come up, buddy. There's these little synchronicities in life. Just a week ago, I was in the kitchen with my son. We were home on Christmas break. I said, buddy, I was like, and me and my son have got a great relationship, my daughter too, and we were talking about it. And I sat him down, and for whatever reason, I was like, buddy, at some point in time, people realized that painting cribs with lead-based paint was not a good idea, right? And then we realized, oh yeah, prescribing smoking, to pregnant mothers was not a good idea, right? I said, I think what's going to happen is that we're going to realize in the same exact category that giving phones to kids when they're too young is in that same category. And we talked about it. And I said, buddy, I didn't know any better. Nobody knew any better. He's 19 now. I said, but now I think that we not only have enough data, but we can feel it intuitively. We feel what it does to our social interactions. We feel what this technology is doing to our minds, our goldfish attention spans. We feel it. So now that we know better, let's do better. And that was our conversation that we just had just a week ago together. And it's about being more mindful with our usage and, obviously being an AI, but being mindful about anthropomorphizing, an AI assistant. So we just talked about the mindfulness associated with digital products that we didn't have, let's say 10 to 20 years ago. But I think we do now. And so now that we know better, we do better. So really interesting.
So you're thinking it's more of an issue of competence. Like if we're handing kids tools that make them look like geniuses, but we strip away the AI, then there's nothing there. So if we create I guess let's call it an algorithm of competence, and that's exposed through wisdom, trial and error, experience, what have you, that it's on the parent, it's on the, not necessarily institution, right?
I always will claim agency whenever possible and suggest that other people do too. And it's unfortunate, that we live in a society where you can buy something that's harmful for you. You could walk down to the store and buy some sort of packaged food that will kill you if you eat enough of it, or a digital device that will transform your brain in a non-healthy way if you let it. It's unfortunate, but that's the truth. It's the same thing that if I drive too fast on the highway or down a dirt road and I lose control, that's on me, right? Like the world is not forgiving in that way. But we get lulled into thinking that it is. We get lulled in this false sense of safety and security, like, oh, daddy government's taking care of us, oh, the FDA is taking care of us, oh, the FCC is taking care of us, oh, Meta's taking care of us, right? And it's just not how it actually works. So, Mo, I'd like to maybe talk about two different things. Let's talk about, interconnected relationships and AI and technology. Like, let's break those apart because I don't want to conflate them, together. And as I'm sitting here thinking about it with you, I think it's okay if we're a little bit hard on ourselves today, and I think that in order to, or on society today, or on other parents today, or on whatever, I think it's okay to be a little bit judgmental about it today because know better, do better, it should be what we're focused on. And now we do know better.
Okay. So if we talk about interconnected relationships between, let's say, the parent and the technology, and then the parent and the child, and then the technology and the child, I still go back to essentially like I claim agency. I wholeheartedly believe that it is upon the responsibility of the parent. Now, the parent may not have all the answers, but
it's up to the parent to fucking get them.
That's what I'm saying. Like you got to figure it out.
Yeah.
Like what are you going to do? You're just going
there is no woe is me and sit back. It's like, oh,
thank you.
No.
Yes.
Like let's get after it for a minute. And sorry, yeah, of course, man, we are not handed a manual when we have kids, right? Like it's crazy. I love being a dad with more than anything in my entire life. I feel like it's actually one of the things I'm actually good at. It's what I don't claim to be good at anything but that, to be honest with you. But I feel like I understand what it's like to be a good father. And with that said, that requires an insane level of humility.
Mm-hmm.
I say that like I'm boasting. I'm not. There's an insane submission to the process, an insane getting out of my own way, an insane amount of like trying to really be aware and present and seeing what's going on with their lives and parent them accordingly and parent them differently. And they're two different kids. They're not the same. And parent them not the way I was parented. Like it is so important. So just on that note, like the minute we say, you said something in your opening about, if you don't hand your phones to the kids, you're the weirdo, or they're the weirdos, or the outcasts, or whatever. Fucking good. What world changing trajectory has been caused by a normal person? It's all weirdos. Mm-hmm. Weirdos change the world. Weirdos do the things that nobody else is willing to do. Right? Weirdos are the ones to be like, wait, hold on, pause, time out. This isn't a great direction. We're going. I'm gonna go this way. Fuck y'all. I don't. You go ahead and go jump off your own cliff. Right? I'm not doing that with you guys. I'm out. Peace out. Right? that's necessary, right? So be the weirdos, like if, in that case. Anyways, that just worlds are not changed by people that are just willing to follow trends.
1000%. And, this may be above my pay grade, maybe above your pay grade. This might be a question for a scientist, but at least we can talk about it. AI removes the struggle of learning to an extent if you understand how to ask the right questions. And by removing that struggle, do you believe that we are damaging a child's brain or their ability to
Oof.
wire itself for not only resilience, but for the capacity to actually learn how to learn?
So to be clear, I don't think it removes the friction for learning. It removes the friction to information, and gaining information and learning are two different things. And so when we had a conversation around education and teachers, like, serving up the information can be done with AI, but teaching is a different tactic. Teaching is a different thing. Teaching is a different skill set than the ones delivering of the information. And so I would like to say that you're 100% right. It removes 100% of the friction to any information. It does not remove the friction to learning.
Yeah.
Is my opinion. Because the reason why my kids are in college, buddy, is not because I believe, honestly, in the marketing degree that they're going to get, but I believe in their ability of learning to learn.
Yes. Yep.
And so maybe this is the way they could do it. Yeah, I'm trying to help with them too. The real life will teach them another way to learn. But no, having access to information does not mean that they're learning. And so I'm a big fan of AI for the ability to learn because of its ability to serve things up. But there's still you have to know how you learn in order to be able to use it properly.
1000%. And I always say, like, I always come around, not always, but, fathers, mothers, what have you, that there's that stigma behind, like, you're fighting your kid when it comes to tech. You're not actually fighting your kid anymore. I feel like you're fighting this wave of culture in AI. The psychological cost of being this person that opts out, in essence. And I'm not talking about from a localized community or family perspective or your inner circle of friends. I'm talking about what it does to the child when they are around, especially children, under the age of, I don't know, high school, let's say. So middle school, that's a very, very hard transitional time. And then high school tends to be a little bit more whatever. But I found that you're kind of positioning your children as outcasts. And even though you've embedded them with resilience and you have taught them how to fend for themselves to a degree at this stage in their life, words still hurt. They're still going to be affected by them. Now it goes against, instead of just fighting one person, you're fighting a plethora. You're fighting essentially like a union.
I'm going to reframe it as an outcast to a leader.
Okay.
I'm going to reframe it. I think that, in one hand, you could view that you set them apart as an outcast. I think in another hand, if you do it properly, you set them apart as a leader. And wouldn't you know it, that if you set your kid up as a leader and they're doing something healthy for themselves, they're going to attract other good kids that also want to do healthy things for themselves, it morphs their entire behavior,
I think that's the ideal. I just don't think that always ends up that way.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
But it's worth doing. It's worth trying. It's worth pursuing.
Yeah.
It's not a thing of like, oh, well, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. No, it's the thing to strive towards, is to find the healthiest version of you outside of whatever social norms might be, pushed down your throat.
Mm-hmm.
But factually with phones, factually with digital technology, factually with AI, it isn't just the psychological part of it. We're a walking pharmacy. We're a walking chemical factory.
Yeah.
And with phones and with AI too now, we're our own pharmacist. We're our own drug dealer, willing to give ourselves a prescription for dopamine and, serotonin. Like, we're giving ourselves a prescription for that drug every time you pick up the phone, or every time you have a comforting chat with ChatGPT and it makes you feel good or makes you feel seen or heard or loved or appreciated or smart in some way.
Mm-hmm.
So I fully believe that is the most insidious part of it, is the disconnect from knowing that our emotions are, a lot of them, derived from our chemical makeup, and we're fighting that battle more than just the psychological battle or the moral fabric of society battle, I think.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on, like, really setting them apart as a leader and essentially finding their tribe. I like that, because when you focus on, I think, an isolation or the isolation, the kid who is the outcast AI, or excuse me, or the leader in real life, those are like nerds in sports now. They're the ones that truly pave their way. And, the artist in the family of accountants, the musician in a family of lawyers or doctors, there's always that, which that's what I always strive and what I hope for in life. I was always the black sheep of the family. So I appreciate that. I just also know the other side of that coin can be a dark, lonely road. And it just needs to have enough support. It's okay if you make a mistake.
You're right. I'm sorry, I have a little bit of a delay here. You're right. It is okay. But let's just look at, let's say, the president, CEO of Apple, Tim Cook.
Okay.
Okay. Have you ever heard about him talk about screen time with his kids and his family? Like, screen time is one of the almost few choice of reverse or inverse consumerisms when it's divided by the socioeconomic divide. So the higher up the ladder you go, the lower screen time their kids and their families actually have.
Okay.
The lower you down the rung of poverty, like the lower income levels, they have higher screen times, like as a relationship. So if you want to talk about just statistically, not just say if it's okay to be a leader or whatever, but factually, the higher up the socioeconomic ladder people are, the higher up the intelligence they are, the lower the screen time is that they have for the kids. They understand it. They understand what it does, and they don't allow it to be like dictated by society or by Best Buy ads or whatever, right? So you can actually look, there's actually studies out now that show average screen time associated to that economics, like where you are in your income earners. And the higher up you go, the lower the screen time is.
I totally see that. The other side, I'm going to play devil's advocate. The other side of that is breaking down what screen time is.
Okay.
So, for instance, for my children, I'm using them because I can relate. Their screen time isn't binge watching just nonsense. It's creating, it's crafting, it's designing, it's art, it's whatever related to the thing that they want to develop a skill in that they've found is a talent of theirs. And they have access to these tablets and what have you, so that they can explore variation and learn. And so there's that aspect of screen time as well. It's just I look at it like a screen is nothing more to me than another window. It is just the new version of pieces of paper, rather than sitting down watching TV for mindless entertainment, which again, there's nothing wrong with that. We all need to just disconnect. But the opposing argument becomes, well, what if the children are just using it as a means to learn something? Does it have a negative connotation then?
Thank you for that clarification. I divide screen time, when I say screen time in any sort of like negative talk or whatever, consuming versus creation.
Got it. Okay.
So screen time for creation is completely different. Not just outcome, but your mind is processing different, your body's processing different. The world reacts to you differently when you're creating versus consuming. So that's a great distinction, but that's how I draw the line with screen time. So screen time is consuming, scrolling, watching, listening, consuming. We're creating, we're using a screen time. So we're going to have an hour of screen time today by creating, right? So that's where I draw the line, creation versus consumption.
Love it. Thank you so much. I want to transition just slightly because before we forget here, there was a topic that was near and dear to me and that you mentioned actually on a previous episode that I thought was interesting. So I made it kind of a focal point for today's conversation, and that's the synthetic intimacy angle, especially when I started researching over this past few days.
What'd you find? I want to hear what you found.
So I found that it was teenagers that were actually starting to become really affected, specifically 14-year-old boys. And it's terrifying because they develop zero empathy. It's the perfect like girlfriend trap. If you want to look at it from that standpoint, we're seeing this rise of AI companions and the digital girlfriends and boyfriends. Not to say that girls aren't affected, but it's right now the from what I was able to read, 14-year-old boys seems to spend most of their time on this specific research for AI and having and interacting with like this AI female entity that never rejects them, that never challenges them, that doesn't understand emotion really, or empathy. Now he's becoming incapable of dating a real human because he's lacking all the foundational principles. There's no conflict resolution. Like there's a huge empathy deficit. And I know I've said that a few times, but that is really important when it comes to being able to understand how to treat one another and how to treat yourself in these relationships. And it's all synthetic feelings, if there are feelings at all. It could just be, hey, I just need to be able to do the thing and move on from it versus like actually building
What do
a
you mean do the thing?
relationship and the skills. Yeah. Well, and build the social skills, being able to romanticize, be able to romance a woman, be able to, learn how to court a woman, right? And you learn all of those in your teens, and it's horrific and it sucks. And some boys are just built naturally, and some, like myself, were just absolutely completely out of the loop when it comes to these kinds of things. So, but these are the formative years. This is where you learn them, and the fact that this is a big issue. And when I found that it was teenage boys that was having majority of this problem, and the rise is going to be around this bracket age range, it's pretty alarming.
Mm-hmm. Water flows downhill, right? It's the path of least resistance. And so do people. People always take the path of least resistance, generally, unless it's very intentionally not to. And because of that, it's obvious, and I've read these stats too, though, and unfortunately these studies have come out showing that the number one use case for teens and AI is companionship of any sorts. So knowing that's true, we also know that it trickles up and down, and we can see it in adults as well. There was a study I saw the other day of this guy. He spent the last 3 weeks, because ChatGPT had convinced him that he was some genius, that he had figured out this mathematical problem that could solve a whole bunch of issues in health and science and whatnot. He spent 3 weeks in this conversation with ChatGPT, convinced that he had figured out this mathematical formula that was completely not true. ChatGPT was hallucinating, and people call it lying the whole time. But he was feeling really good about himself and spent 3 weeks called in sick to work in this whole thing. And so we're focused on teens today, but that path of least resistance, what I'm saying, because it feels so good to be right. It feels so good to be accepted. It feels so good to be appreciated. And you mention it is synthetic. It is, but it's always like, I believe love is not something that I get from somebody else. Like my dog, who I love so much, she just gives me an excuse to where I feel love.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
so that's the same thing with your spouse. It's the same thing with your kids. Like, they don't give you love. They are your excuse to feel love in that way. Okay. And so the same is true with companionship with AI. So it's just a synthetic. We've just now placed that into something that can't reciprocate is all. But people do that in real life. People pick an unavailable partner.
They do.
Right. People pick people that are, married. People pick people that are, unavailable emotionally, because it's safer, because then they don't have to get vulnerable and intimate. Same thing with AI.
Yeah, not to interrupt you, but that just brought me a point. During my research for all of this, men that have been married for a minimum of 10 years, that's kind of like the average status point here, that looked to an AI girlfriend or synthetic intimacy for attention. And it wasn't affection on the physical sense. It was affection in terms of like reciprocity and not putting him down. Majority of those men were the same type of men that fit the category that would either cheat on their spouses or get a divorce, not because of a physical ailment, like they weren't having enough sex or whatever. It was because they were not receiving the mental and the psychological stimulation that they needed from their partners. They just, like you said, they were just completely shut down. And it was an interesting thing to notice. So I just want to point that out while you were mentioning that little factor.
Yeah, it's funny how we got here when we were talking about.
I know, but it's all related. I mean, we're all children. We just age.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that. This whole last year was really finally coming to the grips that there's no such thing as adults.
No,
I was like,
no.
I always thought there was. So yeah, I like that you said that, man. Like, we are all children, and so our relationship with ourselves and our kids and our phones and our AI is a process of learning continually. If any expert says they got it all figured out, here's how you parent your phone, your kids with the phone, all that stuff, I'm like, come on, bro, you're still figuring it out too, I guarantee it. So I do like that you said that. Now, let's say though, going back to parents and going back to yourself, you only work really, really well when you have boundaries for yourself and you have boundaries for your kids. People thrive when they know their thresholds, right? Here is too lazy and here's too much, or here's too early, here's too late, here's too not, honest enough, and here's too candid, right? Like you just like shape your world where like boundaries are really important. And phones and AI and that is just no different. So for instance, boundaries, it's not just around screen time. Screen time, if that's your only metric of success, isn't enough. It's like the appropriate nature of the screen time. right? So if your kid says, oh, I only had 3 hours of screen time today, but during dinner, half the time they're spent on the phone, still 100% inaccurate, right? Like not good use of screen time in that moment. So I don't think I think again, it's the application of screen time, not just consumerism or creativity or creation, but also the timing of it. You can't do the right thing at the wrong time and still get success. Right thing, right time, right quantity to get success in anything, not just phones.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. In fact, I think that we're starting to build, because of this, one of the issues is this tolerance for boredom. I think we treat boredom in our society like a disease, but you know as well as I do that boredom is the birthplace of creativity. You have to have the space to be bored, to let your mind wander, to not be distracted by gadgets and gizmos and tech and outside influence. There has to be some form of moment where the child or you is never allowed, is allowed to be bored. Where right now we have this constant, where's my phone? Where's my,
So
like ding, 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 notification, all of the short form content, just because of the amount of how short of our attention span has become. We're killing imagination. We're killing creativity. And I'm not saying that we as a society per se, I'm just saying as we evolve, things that have now taken precedence are the things that are ruining parts of our capabilities as human beings in order to do the thing that we were put on this earth to do, which I believe is to create.
do you think that word, like for instance, people used to take pride in the fact they used to have everybody's phone numbers memorized. Like it's like I know all my phone numbers, all my friends. Nobody knows any phone numbers anymore.
Yeah.
So do you think that's a bad thing? As an example, do you think like it's important that we should remember people's phone numbers?
That's just as important as being able to memorize directions for places that you frequent, or even
So
places
not
that, yeah.
so not just using the map and following the blue line constantly, but
Correct.
having a sense
You're
of.
completely reliant on something else. What if you don't have those at your disposal? What are you going to do?
Do you think that I'm just curious, buddy, about how you think
Mhm.
now too? Like, so I see people now not able to write a response to an email unless they throw it into their AI system, Gemini or ChatGPT or Huzi or whatever, right? It's like they need their AI to help them respond to everybody. Do you do you think that's a problem too? And so
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Like, listen, if it's warranted, I understand, but to always be reliant on something and not just straining this
Yeah.
thing that's in your skull, like you really got to force that capacity to be able to create. That's why I still, when I write script, anything, I always start with a pen and paper. That's just because it gives me a baseline of where I want to go to. Then I go into AI and I use it as like an extension of self so that I can see various paths,
Okay.
and I'm not saying that's the right way to do it. I just know that works for me.
Yeah,
And
you are.
it doesn't eliminate the creativity aspect that I once possessed. It helps grow it.
Okay. Which I really appreciate. I'm trying to draw the line in my head. Because I don't know what's normal. For me, like so I hunt, I like to archery hunt, I go in the woods and I use a map and compass and altimeter. And I have a GPS in my backpack, but I use a map and a compass and
That's
altimeter.
awesome.
I'll go in the woods for days and hike miles and miles over ridges and unfamiliar territory. And I never use my GPS unless it's some sort of crazy emergency, and I haven't used it in years. And I do that because that to me is a life and death situation. So if I'm out there and I drop my thing or it gets wet or breaks or the batteries die or whatever, and I'm lost, I am screwed as life or death, right? So I want to use the map and compass and I want to be the master of that. I've just been unsure, how I personally feel about is it life and death to remember phone numbers or not, right? Or is it life or death to remember to know where, Albertsons is in Beaverton if you're not there very often.
I look at that, sorry to interrupt you, but I look at that as just like letting your muscles atrophy.
And that's what I'm curious about. I've been trying to have it. Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
We talked about that last time, right? You don't use it, you lose it. I get
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And so, what is the thing that is important to keep that you don't lose versus what are the things that you can lose to allow space for other things,
That's
right?
a good question.
That's all I'm kind of pondering here is what are the things, because in order to do something new, you gotta let go of something old. You can't keep just piling things up over time. So
Mm-hmm.
what are the things that we can let go of that allows for us the space to do something higher level? And that's all I'm just pondering today around the use of AI and creativity in our own minds. The problem with when I use AI is it's just an idea factory, right? Like it could give, and so you don't, if you don't pause long enough to crash one of those ideas against reality, you can get seduced in just the idea of like every idea you have is a good idea and there's infinite ideas, and you get paralyzed because you don't know which idea to take now. So I don't know. Maybe if I were to think about it, then it's the practical application of anything. If you can't do it in the real world by yourself, then you probably shouldn't be offloading that to an AI or system. Maybe that's what it is.
That's a great stopgap. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe that's a good filter. Like,
Yeah.
oh, if I can't find myself like being able to respond to an email like very thoughtfully and I need it, then that's a chance to grow that muscle back, get back in the gym, write those
Hmm.
emails again.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. I can get down with that. Right. That
Yeah.
makes that makes sense to me.
That's a great little exercise. Is memorizing phone numbers important? No. Is it more important than, learning some masterful skill that could
Mhm.
potentially take you to the next step? No, it's not. So, yeah, what are the things that you would just, dump out? I still believe, though, being able to read a map, know where you are, north, south, east, west, is
Mhm.
hugely important, far more important than memorizing a phone number because you need to know where you are in the world,
And that's why I was looking for where that line is, like,
Yeah.
because like with the phone number thing, like I
Yeah.
could make both sides of that argument.
Yeah.
Honestly, I could sell it one way or the other. I'm just trying to decide which one I buy. Which argument is the one I'm buying.
Totally.
Um, and I think I got that. I think I got it. Like if I find myself no longer able to have the skill because I've let it atrophy too far, is the moment I need to grab that back. Because if you are reliant on the AI to do it, you stop understanding when it's not giving you a good response. You stop understanding when it's not writing good email. You stop understanding whatever the thing you're using it for. If you don't have the highest level of skill, it's not the leverage anymore. It's a crutch. And I don't want a crutch.
Mhm.
I want a springboard, right? I want a jetpack. I want a turbocharger to everything I'm doing, not a crutch. So I think that's why I'm going to design it out. If it's a crutch for me, I'm taking the training wheels off and learning to ride again, right? If it's a turbocharger, I'm going to keep the turbocharger strapped on. I think that's how I'm going to view it from now on.
This is nothing really related. I just thought it would be funny just to mention because I'm curious if you've had this. My wife says I'm directionally challenged, but what ends up happening when I'm driving, even if I've been to a place a million times, my I'm focused on my driving, but my brain's somewhere else, and
Hmm.
so I miss a turn
Hmm.
or I miss this intersection. I'm like, I completely, and I'm like, you don't understand. Like, it's not that I don't know where I'm going; it's that my head is somewhere
Not
else.
here. Yeah.
But I still know that there's a car in front of me 10 feet away. Like, I don't know how to explain it.
Oh, yeah. I think everybody gets that.
Yeah.
Everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. It just happens a lot for me.
Hmm. Hmm. Does she,
Anyway,
does that, but if it happens to you there, it happens to you other places too.
totally. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm in my head a lot, man.
Mm.
Right now, I'm probably having three other conversations while I'm having one with you.
Well, which one's the most interesting? Let's do
This
that one.
one, the one we're having. But I'm also picturing being on a mountain right now, just climbing a tree. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And so, coming out here, I'm actually, honestly, I'm working today. I have to go to a meeting after this. I'm working, even though I'm on my snowboard right now, or I will be this afternoon. There's no way, I'm trying to figure out a whole bunch of stuff for work. And there's no way I can do that by just sitting there with my pad and paper or
oh,
just
yeah.
sitting there in front of AI, just going through ideas. I got to move my body. I got to get my mind to smell the fresh air, to remind myself what's important, to almost not have any input, like no ideas, no, to allow the thing to bubble up that's already inside of me that I already know to be true. It's just a little buried right now.
Yeah, totally.
You
We
know?
need to have another conversation because I had a spiritual moment this past week about our current work thing. So we definitely have to touch base on that.
Okay, let's do that. Maybe later tonight, actually. I'm
I'm
curious.
down. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So here's something that I thought was interesting because this happens now. When your kids were before they went to college and they were at home, did you guys sit down at a dinner table like every night? You'd have dinner together,
Not every night, but quite a
or the
bit.
times that you were able to sit down as a family and have dinner, was anybody on a device?
So, man, I mean, honestly, of course, at
Yeah,
times
it's the
I'm
same. That's why I'm bringing it up.
try not to though. So like I
Mhm.
believe though that families that eat together stay together. That's
Yep.
just one simple little idiom. Families that work out together, families that exercise together, families that do activities together, families that read together. Families that do activities where there's a common fundamental experience typically stay together.
Mm.
You're not together doing those things when you're on your phone.
Yeah.
So I mean present together, not sharing space together.
Yeah, present for sure. I think there's something spiritual about eye contact. I really, really do. I'm one of those guys. I think it stabilizes us. I think that if we spend more time looking each other in the eye when we're talking, I feel like you're connected to what I'm saying and vice versa. It's a mutual respect, it's a mutual understanding. And I think that we're literally connecting while we're having a conversation versus you look into the, I used to have people to this day, I'm talking to them and their face is the other direction, or they're talking to me and they're facing the other direction. I'm like, what is happening right now? This is bizarre. This is really weird. I'm right here. And I understand there's like a comfort level for them, but your children, have them look you in the eye. And I really believe that, because I can, especially when they're talking to me, I'm looking in their eyes and I'm like, okay, I understand you, I hear you, and I want them to feel that. And I feel like that resonates, and it's that stabilizing factor. And I think that if you don't do that, what ends up happening is that the screen takes that responsibility. Yeah. And so the more that that screen takes that responsibility, those circuits are now fried. All right, Eric, let's get to our kill shot rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Hit me, baby.
All right. If you could ban one specific app for anyone under 18 tomorrow, which one goes first?
Ban it altogether?
Mm-hmm. Like it doesn't exist. Okay, I'll reword it. How about ban it within your family? Like nobody can use it. It doesn't exist in your ether.
I don't know if I have one.
Okay.
It'd be easy for me to say TikTok. It'd be easy for me to say Instagram, right? It'd be easy for me to say Snapchat. But I honestly can say that there's some upside to all of those when used properly. So instead of banning it in my family, I would say I would have more accountability.
Okay.
I would have more accountability to how are you using TikTok or how are you using Snapchat. And, you know, if the needle is more towards the positive side, than not, like they are creating or they are learning or they are connecting, then I'm not gonna be for the ban. If it's more towards the negative side, that's like, oh bro, then that's not an app problem, that's an us problem, that's an accountability problem. Yeah, sorry, I hadn't thought about that, but I don't think I'd ban any of them. I would just add a higher level of accountability to all.
Okay,
personally.
I love that. That's a great answer. All right, next one. True or false? Do you believe, or just true or false, a child with a smartphone is smarter than a child with a library card?
False.
Preach.
There's no guessing about that one. In fact, the label smartphone is a ridiculous premise just by itself. What a marketing ploy that is.
Yeah, just call it a miniature computer. That's all
It's a genius accessibility device. It's not a smart device at all, but right. Accessibility, yeah.
Yeah. What is the biggest lie big tech tells parents, in your opinion?
Trust me, bro. You know, like trust me, bro. We've got this new, teen Instagram account, or trust me, bro. The AI inside of Snapchat's totally benign, right? Or trust me, bro. Like, no, it's totally fine. They can log in all they want. And I think that's it. In fact, the trust me, bro, of like, well, you can't even have a business unless you have a social media presence. Bullshit. You can have a thriving, outstanding business and not have a single fucking website if you did it right. Right? Like, there's a big analog world out there. There's a big world that's not digital, that's not dependent on having to have a social media presence. So that is just the biggest, gaslighting of all time, that we need social media to be part of society, is complete fabrication of the truth.
That's so funny. Yeah. This next question is kind of funny. And I wrote it specifically for you because I already know the answer.
Okay.
If the power grid goes down tomorrow, you have no internet, you have no AI, you have no screens, you have no tech, how long do you think your family will last before it implodes?
Infinitely. Yeah, infinitely. What's really, really cool, again, going back to parenting, I wish I would have been smarter about phones. I wish I would have been a little more accountable to myself too, to be honest with you. I feel the pull and I hate that.
Yeah.
I really do. But man, my kids, my family has got an appreciation for the outdoors. They have appreciation for animals. They have appreciation towards each other, people. So, dude, it'd be fine. I'd be happy, actually.
Same here. In fact, I would look at it as a vacation, quite honestly. Probably me more so than the kids, but we've got board games, we've got cards, we've got outside, we've got animal, So the only thing that we're missing is a farm. That's the dream.
Yeah. Same.
A little tiny one-story farmhouse on some land with some animals. That's literally how I want to.
That'd be heaven. Yeah, that'd be heaven. It's great.
All right, man. Well, hey, thank you everybody for tuning in. Today has been phenomenal. Thank you so much, Eric, for stopping by for one of the most provocative conversations I think we've had yet to date. And I mean that wholeheartedly. Thank you for always being off the cuff, but being very thoughtful in your responses. And I truly hope that this helps someone that is listening. And if you guys like what you hear, please give us a like, a share, a follow. heyhuzi.buzzsprout.com. For the time being, we are launching a new website coming soon, and we're on all the social webs. So Follow us, like us, share us. Thank you so much, Eric. Have a wonderful night. We'll see you on the next one.
Be in the driver's seat, everybody. Okay, buddy. Thank you.